Israel. Learn English podcast with Safa Shelley, the world's best language school. Let's go.
ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט של שפות שלי, בית ספר לאנגלית ושפות נוספות המוביל בישראל. אני אריאל, I'm your host for today. אני נמצא כאן היום עם אורח סופר מיוחד, a special guest.
What's up?
What's up? How are you, Gadi?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
All right, nice to have you on the podcast. יהיה נושא מעניין היום. ולפני שאנחנו ניכנס לזה, אם זה פעם ראשונה שאתם שמעתם על הפודקאסט שלנו, where have you been? איפה אתם הייתם עד היום? Like I always say, היום יש לנו פודקאסט המוביל בישראל ללימוד אנגלית. אנחנו כאן בשפות שלי גם מציעים קורסים פרטיים אחד על אחד. אנחנו לומדים כאן 9 שפות עם מורים מקצועיים שדוברי את השפה, שפת אם, בשיטה המובילה בעולם. עשו איתנו קשר לפרטים נוספים, אתם רוצים לשפר את האנגלית שלכם מעבר להוצאה מילים, אבל ממש לעבוד על שליפה ודיבור ולקדם את עצמכם בעולם העסקים, או לכל מטרה אחרת, צרו איתנו קשר ב-053-550-1976. אנחנו זמינים גם בוואטסאפ, או דרך האתר שלנו, שפות שלי.co.il, או דרך האימייל info@safotshli.co.il. Okay, as we're done with that introduction, Gadi, today we're going to talk about you on our podcast because אתה בעצם מומחה קריפטו, אוקיי? אתה משקיע גם בקריפטו קרנסי, נכון?
נכון.
ואתה התחלת מגיל יחסית צעיר. We're going to do this in English, okay? And occasionally I'm going to switch to Hebrew, לתת תרגום אולי למה שאתה אומר לאנשים שלא מבינים. אבל זה פרק מאוד מאוד חשוב, כי אנחנו נדבר קצת על העתיד, ומה הולך לקרות בשוק המרתק הזה.
Wow, that's going to be very interesting.
And how to get into it. All right, so Gadi, firstly, I'm going to raise for you an interesting, let's say, forecast that came on, that I came across last week, okay? It was trending very hard on X on Twitter. It was somebody from VanEck, which is someone called Matthew Siegel. He's head of research for cryptocurrency in the United States at VanEck, which is a huge
hedge fund. It is a huge hedge fund. They are monsters.
It's אחד נקרא לזה בתי השקעות הענקיים, במיוחד שזה קשור לקריפטוקרנסי, משווים על המון ביטקוין reserves, אוקיי? אז הוא אמר ככה השבוע, he said last week actually, sorry, that Bitcoin, the forecast for Bitcoin by 2050, כן, זה נשמע כמו הרבה שנים, אבל זה לא, זה עוד 26 שנה מהיום. They are talking about $3 million value of Bitcoin. Now, רק ככה לעשות לכם קצת סדר, כשאנחנו מדברים היום על ביטקוין, what is it trading at the moment, Gadi, more or less?
I'm going to check. Currently, it's trading, it has had a pullback in these last days, but it's still trading at around $89,000, closer to $90,000.
A Bitcoin.
A Bitcoin, a single coin.
It's good that you check because it fluctuates a lot. Okay, זה משהו שמאוד תנודתי, fluctuation. And
I checked this morning and it was around 87. So yeah, I don't get excited anymore about its ups and downs in the midterm.
Okay, do you think it's מה שמאוד מרתיע משקיעים, במיוחד אנשים כמוני, that people who generally work very hard for their money, you know, יש פה אנשים שמזינים לנו שהם אנשים שהם עובדים במשכורת, בחברה, בארגון, עובדים בהייטק או תחום אחר, or they're lawyers or engineers or whatever it is, עורכי דין, and they're working hard for their funds, and then next thing, they need to invest in something which fluctuates a lot, okay? משהו שמאוד נודתי, משהו שמאוד זז, שסנית קלאפס, הם אולי פוחדים שזה משהו שהתפוגג, וגם הם לא יודעים בדיוק איך להשקיע, how to invest into it. So what do you say to people like that? What is your thinking when it comes to Bitcoin and the viability or the long-term, נקרא לזה attractiveness of it?
אוקיי, קודם כל זה מזכיר לי כשאני ניסיתי להסביר לאבא שלי בדיוק מה זה ביטקוין. By the way, אבא שלי בן 72, איש עסקים קריש מאוד, אבל כמו כל בן אדם מבוגר, הוא גם מתקשה להבין כמה מושגים חדשים היום, במיוחד בעולם שכזה משתנה בצורה כזאת פתאומית. קודם כל, first of all, we have to understand that Bitcoin requires effort in order to be created. זה דורש מאמץ בשביל לייצר אותו. זה כל התהליך של מיינינג. למה ביטקוין כזה יקר? למה ביטקוין מקבל ערך ממשהו? כי הוא עולה כסף, הוא עולה infrastructure, הוא עולה משאבים, resources in order to have it.
Okay,
And
so I want you to המאזינים שלנו כאן also to learn more about crypto, but I want to maybe put in more English, okay, maybe switch to Hebrew if something's not clear, אנחנו נעבור לעברית בחלקים שהם קשים, בוא נגיד, או לא ברורים. אז אתה אומר בעצם, אוקיי, זה משהו שמאוד, it's very difficult to create it, okay, it requires a lot of infrastructure, so it's something that has intrinsic value, יש לו ערך שכבר מטמוע בפנים, okay? All right, so what do you say to someone like your dad who doesn't understand about Bitcoin or investing into Bitcoin?
I explain it with a metaphor. Think of something you had to work hard for, like your money. תחשוב על משהו שהיה לך מאוד מאוד קשה להשיג. So it's going to have value. Doesn't matter if it goes up or down in the midterm, like it costed you some resources to have. And that's basically what Bitcoin is, because you have to invest money, electricity, infrastructure, computers in order to mine it. So that's where Bitcoin gets its value, because it's
not air. It's basic. זה לא אוויר, כמו שאנשים מדמיינים. It has an intrinsic value to it. You're saying the actual creation of it.
Yeah, on the other hand, banks can print money out of thin air. They can just push a button and new money is created. They don't even have to print it anymore, because 95% or even more of the money nowadays is digital.
Okay, now, what's the reason that Bitcoin has been going up so strong in the last couple of years? And where do you see it going forward from here?
Okay, well, that's a very good question. There are many factors. First of all, was the creation of the BlackRock ETF. For those who don't know, BlackRock is the biggest hedge fund in the US.
רק השקעות הכי גדולה בעצם. BlackRock הם מחזיקים מופע הקלעים באמזון, באפל, הרבה מניות גם. כמעט כל, all the top, let's say in Dow Jones, all the top, let's say 500 companies.
Yeah, they hold more than 50% of the S&P, something crazy. Mm-hmm. And when those guys know where to invest, those guys know where to put the money, because they are behind the kelaim, they are behind the tools of the market. So when they decided to open that ETF, it was not for the people, it was for them, because they wanted to hold the most they can. Because it's...
Firstly, what is an ETF?
An ETF is the ראשי תיבות of exchange trading fund, which is an option on the bursa, on the stock market, to buy something like usually a prime matter, a matach, like gold, which holds a value proportional to what that matach is trading at currently in the market.
Okay, so they basically opened that ETF. In that, you're saying that drove a lot of demand because it's like giving it A, legitimacy, and B, maybe they're seeing someone like BlackRock sitting on a lot of Bitcoin. It already creates that sort of like buzz for demand.
It was basically that, because they started buying lots and lots of it. And since it's something scarce, it's something that's taken out of the market. There is no more Bitcoin to buy. There's no more Bitcoin to sell. Something that's
scarce from... Scarce זה משהו חסר. Scarce זה משהו חסר במליין.
Scarcity is נדירות. אז ברגע שאתה לוקח מוצר שבסירקולציה בשוק, פתאום אתה לוקח אותו מהשוק, אז הוא הופך לנדיר יותר, כי אין יותר בשביל לקנות או למכור.
What drives basically the price action is the supply and demand. It's הביקוש. That's what's driving it. So you're saying, okay, BlackRock came in, they opened up the ETF, they already invested and sitting on a lot of crypto, specifically Bitcoin, and therefore they drove the demand. It basically tripled in price since then. All right, Gadi, so what else drove it? I mean, what else drove that demand?
Well, it was a mix of factors. First of all, the creation of the ETF that drove lots of masses of money, of institutional money flowing into Bitcoin, because now there was many Mosadot wanted to buy into Bitcoin, and also was the supply being cut by BlackRock. BlackRock bought lots of Bitcoin and actually taking them away from the circulating supply. Like they took out the possibility for Bitcoin to be sold. So what happens when there are more buyers than sellers in the market? Yeah, that's what happens. Prices pump.
Pump זה מפמפם בעברית. Okay, but there's another fact as well that you wanted to mention, the halving, no?
Yeah. Okay, the halving is the process Bitcoin goes through every 4 years to cut its inflation, like any matach, like any prime matter. There is also inflation. Even gold has inflation, but it is a very small one. Every year, new gold is mined from the earth and brought into circulation. And so is Bitcoin. Every time a new Bitcoin is mined from the network and put it into circulation, it's called inflation. But the thing is that every 4 years, the inflation of Bitcoin is cut in half through a process called halving. Let's say that for every 215,000 blocks mined, the validators, המאשרים, get 1.25 Bitcoins for their work of mining. And every 4 years, they get half of it for the same amount of blocks mined, basically for the very same work. They get half of it.
Why should they continue doing it if they're getting paid half now? How is it still paying the bills? How is it still worthwhile? איך זה עדיין רווחי העסק הזה של to mine ביטקוינים, אם עדיין חותכים אותך לחצי בערך כל כמה שנים, כל 4 שנים אמרת?
לא, זה אומר שהמאמץ שלך נשאר אותו דבר, רק שאתה מקבל פרס חצי. יותר קטן, חצי מהפרס, או תחשוב על זה ככה, אתה עובד פעמיים בשביל לקבל את אותו פרס. אז בשביל משהו שאתה צריך להתאמץ יותר, for something you have to put on more effort and getting the same result, getting the same price, and it gets more valuable because you value more your work, you value more the work you put into, and you associate it directly with its price.
Okay, אבל what justifies the work? For example, what would justify the hard work? For example, if today, think about it this way. Let's say you're in a job, Ben בתפקיד עבודה is in a job position, and he gets paid every month 20,000 shekels for his work. But let's say he knows every couple of years he's going to be doing the same work, but for half. Why would he continue doing it? Do you understand?
That would mean he's...
What is the incentive? How do we know that Bitcoin is still going to get mined at half the price? Why would people still continue doing it, or the new mine is coming into the frame?
The only solution to that equation would be the price of Bitcoin going up in order to justify the work of it, the work being the same, yet the price being cut in half.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. You would get the halving is basically not the halving of the price. It's the חצי של המחיר, אבל חצי of what you receive for Bitcoin being mined. אוקיי, אז כל הביטקוין שאתה מייצר בנטוורק, אתה מקבל חצי כתגמול, אוקיי, אבל זה עדיין שווה, because the price may be double or triple since then, right?
Yep.
So intrinsically, it's built in a way that the price needs to keep going up in order for it to be justifiable.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why Satoshi Nakamoto is still anonymous, because he would have gotten himself killed for that idea.
Why?
Because that's how banks control the world. That's how banks control the supply of money. That way,
that's the model that they have. That's the model, basically. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's the model that they have on mortgages as well. I mean, that's how they keep property keeps going up. They basically build a model around property that way, which is giving you interest, giving you a mortgage. Okay, okay, you get a mashkanta. They know that the property is probably likely to keep going up. Okay, and they're using it as a vehicle to generate a new interest, right? So here, in terms of, if we take a look at it similarly, Satoshi Nakamoto basically created a method where you could basically keep the price of Bitcoin in order for it to be viable. It basically will keep getting more and more expensive, okay, because it's taking harder work to mine for less. But the question you have like this: what happens if something happens? How often does the mining come around?
Every 4 years.
What happens right before the 4 years? And we know, okay, and you also explained this to me before, that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is very related to the performance of the stock market, to the shuk on. Okay, if the stock market is doing well, generally, then crypto is going up generally as well, because there's a saying I heard which says that when the stock market sneezes, right, the crypto market gets pneumonia. כשהשוק ההון או הבורסה רגילה עושה אפצ'ו, אז בעצם כל הקריפטואים מקבלים דלקת ריאות. אז מה ששואל אותך כאן, מה קורה, what happens if it comes up and it's right before the halving, there's a situation where something spooks the market, or markets are down, there's a big war happening, and all of a sudden the prices collapse really hard, and then would the mining cease? Would it stop? Would it become a lot less? Would it spark demand again? What would happen in that specific phase? Or because of the halving situation, that in itself would push the price up?
Okay, you brought a topic that many people misunderstand, and they think that for the fact that the halving is happening, the price of Bitcoin will go up right away. And no, that's not necessarily what happens. That means that the inflation of Bitcoin is being cut in half, but the circulating supply, it's still out there. It's still out there. People are still trading Bitcoin for a specific price, and yeah, buyers and sellers have agreed to have that price.
But what happens if the new mining is slowed down? If there's a collapse in the price, then the new mining will slow down if it's been halved.
Then it's going to go back eventually.
Because
it's gonna go back eventually. First of all, if you invested, let's say, $1 million to buy a house, and as a good investor, would you sell it for less than $1 million?
No.
So even though there will be people willing to sell their houses for less than $1 million, eventually you will get a buyer for $1 million. So eventually the price will go back to that. Because what drives the price of Bitcoin? It is all about people willing to sell or buy the Bitcoin for that specific price. That's the number you get on your exchange application. It is the last transaction done on the exchange for a sell or a buy of Bitcoin, basically.
Okay, so that's basically means that, אני רק רוצה לפשט את זה שנייה, that means basically that אפילו אם יש מצב that we're reaching the halving period, שהולכים לחתוך חצי מה שאתה הולך לקבל על לייצר ביטקוינים, okay, even though there could be a dip in the price of Bitcoin in that period, that moment, okay, it's still, the price will still rebound, because maybe it will impact also the people who are going to be mining. I mean, if there's less mining, means there's supply. right? So on itself, either there's going to be less mining, which can affect the supply, or either when the buyers and sellers in between themselves, it will be less selling at that specific price at a lower price, and it will cause let's say, the demand to increase for it and go up, and that will push the price upwards.
Yep.
Right. So either way, there will always be upward pressure on the Bitcoin. Even if there's a collapse and less people will mine, and then there'll be a certain amount in circulation, and then that's it. That's all there is until it gets boosted up again until demand increases again.
And also regarding what you said earlier about the S&P 500, the correlation there is between the S&P 500 and Bitcoin's price action. And you said, many people have paid attention to that. There's a big correlation when the S&P 500 is trending up to Bitcoin trending up too. So I wouldn't say one is the effect of the other, but both of them are driven by the same thing, which is liquidity. When there is lots of liquidity, people have more money to invest in their businesses, and for that, the S&P 500 goes up. And also, people have more money to invest in Bitcoin. So there's more buyers, and thus, the price of Bitcoin also goes up. They are driven by the same things, but as you can also see on the graphs, there are some periods when the S&P 500 is trending down while Bitcoin is trending up. And also the other way around, when Bitcoin is trending down while the S&P 500 is going to all-time heights.
Okay, as the correlation is not exact. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but they are driven by the same thing, yet it is not that one is the effect of the other.
Okay, עכשיו אני אשאל אותך שאלה מה ששאלתי קודם, and then we're going to summarize for today. יש לנו 2-3 דקות. We're going to finalize for today. Our producers are saying we have to cut the show, but we're out of time soon.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we're out of time soon, but I want to just summarize 2 things that I asked you before we started today's podcast. האם זה זמן טוב? Is it a good time to buy Bitcoin?
My answer is, it doesn't matter. You don't go all in. You don't buy anything. You dollar cost average into it. If you're too afraid to put a lot of money into Bitcoin, then don't. Don't ever invest with money you need. One way to invest in Bitcoin, especially in matachim, in some things that are very volatile, and brand matters that are usually very volatile. By the way, also the price of gold has gone down this week substantially, and the price of gold is going to go back up eventually because, God, it's gold. You don't go all in. Nobody knows when the best time to buy is. Nobody knows how up is going to go. But the only certain thing is that the prices are going to go up. Nobody knows till when. Nobody knows also the pullbacks. They're going to be the atikunim שהולכים להיות. You dollar cost average into it. You buy little by little. You dissipate into it.
אז כל פעם לקנות, what you say is כל פעם לקנות בקטנה. Doesn't matter if it's going up or down. להיכנס לזה בצורה הדרגתית, because long term, טווח ארוך, זה יעלה. Okay, so don't try to time the market. אל תנסו לתזמן את השוק. פשוט תסתכלו ב-long term vision. וב-long term vision כאן, זה אמור לעלות, כי לפי כל הפרמטרים שדיברנו היום, it's supposed to keep climbing. Now, the question is how we started the podcast. Is it going to go to $3 million by 2050?
Eventually, yes. And probably even more.
All right. So that's an exciting sum up for today. תחשבו היום, זה עומד על $90,000. אתם יום אחד תסתכלו וזה יהיה שווה מעל $3 מיליון, לפי תחזיות של, נקרא לזה, the head of research on cryptocurrencies worldwide right now. That's their forecast. יש להם אינטרס ענק. They have a major interest to pump demand. But the way it looks right now, because of the institutions behind Bitcoin, the chances of it actually collapsing or disappearing or going down or being declared something, let's say, illegal or not a viable tradable instrument is extremely, extremely unlikely. There's too many people and governments and institutions invested into it now and the legitimacy of it is just there. Is there to stay.
And probably Papi Trump won't let that happen.
אוקיי, alright, אז תודה רבה שהזנתם לנו היום, מקווה שהיה לכם פרק מאוד מאוד מעניין. תודה רבה גדי for coming onto the show. It was fun having you here today. Giving us a bit of a twist, a bit of an insight, משהו חדש. אתם כאן כדי לשמוע לאנגלית ולהזין אנגלית, אבל תמיד כיף גם לשמוע משהו חדש, ועוד אופקים להשקיע בהם גם. תמיד קריפטו זה נהיה, זה כבר שנים, שזה יש באז מאוד סביב זה, אבל הבאז עכשיו חוזר. יש שינוי בממשל בארצות הברית. We've seen the climb, we already seen the impact of it, we've seen it climb very hard this week, and it's probably going to continue to climb as a financial instrument. As we'll see you guys again next week, אני כאן איתכם שוב, שבוע הבא, תודה רבה שהזנתם לנו. Keep learning, keep growing, and if you like Gadi, then keep investing. I know Gadi's made a lot of money trading Bitcoin, so keep investing if you are into investing. And have yourself a great day. We'll see you guys again next week, and bye-bye.